Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and welcome back to another movie review that I got for you guys today. And today we're reviewing another bit of iconic 80s horror, and that is the original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984.
There's something out there, isn't there?
She's the only one who can stop it. If she fails, no one will survive.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Rated R.
A Nightmare on Elm Street stars Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp, Robert Englund, and it's directed by the late Wes Craven. The plot of the original Nightmare on Elm Street is that a group of teenagers are terrorized by Freddy Krueger, an evil being from another world who gets to his victims by entering their dreams and killing them with gloves that have knife blades attached to each finger. Ooh, there's so much to talk about here, because it's been a while since I've any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, to be perfectly honest with you. Guys, I think the last time I watched any of them was last year. Me and Josh started watching them. It was his first time ever watching any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I think at the time we were at Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, which, by the way, I told Josh that I will be catching up in terms of reviewing the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, so once after I'm through with reviewing a Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, then he and I will start watching Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, and we'll review that. We'll review all the other films together. So for the majority of this franchise review series, it'll just be, you know, myself doing the reviews and that. And then once we get to close to, like, a little more than halfway through this franchise, then Joshua will be brought into the picture. So, just thought I'd let you guys know that. Now let's move on to my positives. I have so much to say about this movie, a lot of good things. For one, definitely the positive is the story. I mean, this, especially at the time, was really created for a slasher movie or a supernatural movie, because it kind of combines the two together. It combines a slasher with a supernatural movie, so it's a supernatural slasher, if you think about it, because it does have a lot of supernatural elements, with Freddy Krueger getting into these children's dreams and everything. But basically, for most of this film, it's kind of a mystery movie. You, like, trying to figure out, you know, what exactly is going on here with these murders and everything, you know. And definitely one of the things I like, too, that they do with the story, is before, you know, the stuff with Freddy Krueger happens and everything like that, they give quite a bit of time developing the main cast of teenagers here. And you really start to like and care for them, actually. And I really like that. In fact, fun fact, actually, this, for those who don't know, although I know there's plenty who do in the horror community, but for those who don't know, this was actually the first film that Johnny Depp starred in, actually. He was Heather Langenkamp's boyfriend in the movie, which Heather Langenkamp played the main character, Nancy, which, that's another interesting thing, by the way. So, originally, the film starts off with Amanda Weiss's character, Tina Gray, being the main character. They basically pulled Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. You think she's going to be the main character of the movie and everything, you've grown to like her, and then by some point through the movie, I think like maybe 10 minutes or so into the movie, or something like that, maybe more, 20 minutes, she ends up getting killed horrifically by Freddy Krueger in a nightmare, actually. And it is a pretty disturbing scene, actually. I almost forgot how disturbing the scene actually is. And it's like, ooh, it does send shivers down my spine, actually. And then the rest of the movie, it focuses on Nancy, which, again, I like every single one of these characters. I mean, I liked all of them. I even like the parents for the most part. Of course, you have to get through the whole horror movie bullshit scenario where the parents don't believe in their kids and all that stuff, and only until the end they believe, at least one of them does. So, yeah, you kind of do have to go through that kind of stuff, but to be honest, I should really put that in my negatives, but to be honest, it's just a nitpick I have, so I wouldn't even consider that a real negative, because you can easily look past that with this movie. Yeah, I just really like these characters, actually. And speaking of characters, let's talk about the infamous Freddy Krueger. So basically, during the 80s, once after this film became a success, it basically started a franchise, actually, which now we're like 9 movies into this franchise now. Supposedly they're wanting to do another one. So at the time, during this franchise's run, also Jason Voorhees with the Friday the 13th films was having his run too throughout the 80s. So the 2 biggest horror icons at the time was Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. They basically took over 80s horror. Unfortunately, Michael Myers was nowhere to be found because he started off in the early 80s with Halloween 2, but then after Halloween 3, decided to not involve Michael Myers whatsoever. He kind of lay dormant for quite some time, actually, like that franchise and that character, until Halloween 4 came out in 1988. So basically, Michael Myers was only there really from the very start of the early 80s, like 1981, and then only resurfaced until the late 80s with Halloween 4 and Halloween 5 in 1988 and 1989. So because of that, Michael Myers was not as big or popular at the time as Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. In fact, honestly, I still think that's the case today. I still think there's not much people, at least as I think there should be, talking about Michael Myers as there is people talking about Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. I think a big part of that, especially in Freddy's case, is because, again, he was one of the horror icons that took the world by storm throughout the whole entire decade of the 80s. If the Halloween franchise had done that with Michael Myers, I'm sure Michael Myers would probably be as big as Freddy and Jason. But anyway, so yeah, Freddy Krueger has become a phenomenon during the 80s, actually. I mean, hell, there were even like stuff like, and I found this kind of weird, but kind of awesome at the same time too. Like disturbingly awesome that, you know, they were being Freddy Krueger was being marketed towards children eventually. You know, like that's how big he was. Like everybody, even your little kid, probably knew who Freddy Krueger was. So this is a big time horror icon here. I think probably even a bigger horror icon than Jason Voorhees, to be honest. And I think what really helps with that is Freddy Krueger had more of a personality. He actually had a voice. He was one of the few horror icons that had more of a voice at the time and had personality. He wasn't just, you know, big guy wearing a hockey mask or a white-faced William Shatner mask or anything like that. He actually was a verbal slasher villain. I think especially in this film, I think he was the most effective in this film, actually. Because Freddy Krueger in the original Nightmare on Elm Street is creepy as hell. He's not the Freddy we've grown to love and everything like that, and that's because of the fact we're not supposed to love Freddy. And I hate the fact that, again, I'll discuss this when I get to the sequels, that Freddy Krueger became such an instant icon as he did in the wrong ways, I think. Everybody looks up to Freddy Krueger as their hero, and no, this is a child murderer. He kills children for fun. Think about that. Like, he's the horror icon that's like the definition of pure evil. I just find that kind of weird and disturbing, but kind of awesome at the same time. So, very confusing emotions with that. So yeah, Freddy Krueger, I will admit, is actually an awesome character, especially in the first film. He was just so creepy and so maniacal, and just so unique in terms of a slasher villain. Another positive I have with this film, honestly, are the practical effects in this movie. Like seriously, like, damn, these effects are pretty good. Not, okay, I would say I've seen movies that have better effects than this. Even, like, to be perfectly honest, I think a film like John Carpenter's The Thing have way better effects in terms of the practicality. But what they were able to do with such a low budget is amazing. It still astonishes me. Like, I wish I could be able to do stuff like that. I mean, hell, they turned a whole bed, like, they made a whole bedroom and had it to where it would rotate, they would flip it over, and so that, and I think something like, I don't know, they would eventually, like, in post or something like that, reverse the image to make it look like it's not, like, the set isn't, like, upside down. That is impressive. Because now these days, that whole scene during Tina's death would have been done with CGI. In fact, it did in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. And I don't think it looked nearly as good as in this original movie. Because it was done practically, in camera, to where you could see it, and plus it gives something for the actors to actually, interact with. But again, I'll discuss all that stuff when I get to the remake. Another positive I have is the music composed by Charles Bernstein. It has such a dreamlike quality, which I think was the intended purpose, but yet it's very eerie too. And then there's some parts of it that does sound kind of almost like soothing. Like, it sounds soothing, but yet disturbing at the same time. In fact, my favorite bits of the music are the ones that does it much more calmly, not much, either calmly in that, and also ones that are, like, a little bit bigger in terms of, like, scale, but not so bombastic and, like, you know? Like, for example, my favorite tracks are the main theme. The main theme to the movie, like, during the opening titles. And then another example is the track is called a Sleep Clinic, and it's much more soothing. But still kind of eerie. I really dug the music by Charles Bernstein. I've heard he's done some other music, like I think he's done the music to The Omen, which I have not yet seen any of the Omen movies. Probably get to those at some point. Also, another positive I have with this film, I really like the pacing of this movie. This movie clocks in at 1 hour and 31 minutes, and honestly, it does not feel like 1 hour and 31 minutes. Like, seriously, like, by the time we got to, for example, Tina's death, which I think marked in about 20 or 30 minutes into the film, I honestly felt like I was watching the film for only 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, actually. Yeah, 5 minutes. That's how fast I felt like I was watching the movie. But at the same time, too, it wasn't too fast to the point where, it completely ignores, character development and, the development of the story, all that different stuff. It really didn't do that. So I really do love the pacing of this movie. Also, another positive I have too, which kind of goes hand in hand with some of the effects, but not really. It's more so with camera work and stuff like that. First of all, by the way, I love the cinematography in this movie. And I also love what they tried to do. So basically, they tried to make it to where these people do enter in the dream. It's so seamless, you really can't tell at first if the person's dreaming or not. Which the later films would rather just completely remove that. So, and just saying, Hollywood, if you do make a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie, take note of this from the original. I think it would actually make things a lot more creepier, and it does in this one. Because it's like, you don't know if you just entered into a dream or not, because it just feels like the rest. And then once you start seeing weird stuff going on, it's like, that gives you hints that, yes, this is a dream. But then there's times, like, without getting into too much spoilers, like at the, well, I'm going to discuss spoilers anyway. So, like, at the end of the movie, the final climax, I honestly, there were times I had no idea if Nancy was dreaming all the climax, or if it really happened, and I had no idea. So, I had no idea if everything that happened in the climax was real, or if it was a dream. I had no idea. And I love that, you know, like, because it makes you come back and kind of, and I like that because it helps you, because it actually makes you want to come back and revisit a film, you know, try to answer these questions that the film presents and everything. But honestly, for me, I could keep on going on about my positives for this film, because this is, for the most part, a really awesome movie. Unfortunately, I do have, like, some negatives, so let's get right into them. The biggest negative I have, and I'm not the only one who agrees with this, is the ending. I do not like the ending, which, again, spoiler alert. If you don't want to be, well, screw it. This is like a over 40-year-old, like, close to a 40-year-old movie. If you have not seen Nightmare on Elm Street, just, what the fuck are you doing? Like, go and watch it. It's on HBO Max, so if you have HBO Max, go and watch it. Before you start this, before you click on this review, I should have mentioned that earlier. In fact, I may actually put this, earlier in the video, but anyway, so, I really don't like the fact that they tried to shove in sequel bait in this movie. Now, here's the thing. If they wanted to do a sequel, that's fine, you know? And if they wanted to hint at a sequel, that's fine too. But the way it was handled, I did not like. Mostly because it just felt cheap, and I think does cheapen the movie a bit. And on that too, as well, it ends up creating an awful effect. This is probably the worst effect in the movie. And that's because Wes Craven originally didn't want to have sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street. In fact, his original ending, which you could actually see on the Infinity Film Blu-ray or DVD of A Nightmare on Elm Street, is so basically after Nancy defeats Freddy and everything, she comes out of her house and everything. Seems nice. Her mother's back and everything like that. And that's it. You know, it was meant to be a kind of happy ending, you know, and, you know, Freddy's 100% defeated. There's no chance of him coming back, but the studio didn't like that and wanted to go for an ending that could, because they saw potential of this movie being made into sequels, like becoming a franchise. And I think that was kind of a big mistake. More so in terms of how they handle it. So, instead of that, we get what we see in the film, and that's, Nancy comes out, she goes with her friends, so all of her friends are back, as well as her mother, and then, the car starts pulling, you see Freddy's, sweater colors, red and green striped and everything, starts to lock the door on them, everything, they drive off, and then you see, like, the jump rope girl starts singing, like, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Like that lullaby song, and then afterwards, you see a shot of Nancy's mom standing in front of the doorway, Freddy Krueger's arm coming in, grabbing her, and then sucking her into the window, and that effect looks fucking horrible. Like, to be honest, it looks like they had stuntman Robert Englund basically pull in basically a blow-up doll. It looks so bad. I mean, that is so terrible. What they could have done, they could have easily just done, you know, the car starts turning into Freddy's colors and all that stuff like it does. and then have them drive off, Nancy's mom waving by, and then you see the jump rope girls, and then that's where the movie ends. They could have done that to indicate, you know, the possibility that Freddy Krueger is still alive, Nancy didn't defeat him, and that there could be sequels. I would have preferred that over what we got. And it would have made the film less cheap. Like, I think it would have made the film a little bit better. But honestly, for me, that's it with my negative. So with that said, I'm going to give the original Nightmare on Elm Street a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, for me, this is an awesome movie. Again, I only had one problem with the film, and that was with the ending. And I did have several other problems, but to be honest, if I mention them, that because they were just... I didn't mention them because they were just nitpicks, and I felt like didn't really ruin my experience with the movie. There's a reason why this film is as iconic as it is. You know, it's a masterpiece of a horror movie. Again, I only have one real issue with it. If they had removed that issue, this film would have definitely been bumped to 5 out of 5 stars. But again, I love this movie. It's probably, like, if you were to ask me in terms of, because there's people in the horror community, it's like, oh, what's your favorite? The big three horror icons, Michael Myers, Freddy, or Jason. I would say my favorite would definitely have to be Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise, but Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger are a close second in terms of like the big three horror icons. Jason Voorhees and the Friday the 13th films are probably my least favorite of the big three. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and pleasant dreams.